All right, it's time for one of y'all's favorite types of videos. It's comparison, and today we are stacking up two of Martin's most underappreciated guitars. It's the J-40 versus the M-36. Stick around. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name is Chris McKee.
I'm Cooper Greenberg.
We're here with Alamo Music in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos. If you want to support the channel, we'll visit our Spring Store link below for custom swag and check out our podcast. It's the Fretboard Confessional, wherever you get your podcasts. And listen, I know you guys have been like, where's the podcast? We're literally this week trying to find a time for us to do the podcast. It's coming, I promise. And really appreciate that y'all care so much about it.
Yeah, we mention it because we want to remind you that we're going to do it. When we stop mentioning it,
that means
new episodes are out.
Yeah, no. So today we are taking a look at two of the most underappreciated guitars that Martin has. And I have long been a proponent for the M-36. I have called it the secret weapon of a lot of Nashville studio players. And I say that because I've talked to a lot of Nashville studio players whose favorite weapon of choice is the Martin M-36. I think it's one of their most versatile guitars, and it has a stable mate that a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with, which is the J-40. And why do I say it's a stable mate? Because these are very, very similar guitars, truth be told.
Yeah. So a couple questions for you right off the bat.
Yeah.
That one's obviously 36 because it has appointments very similar to a 35.
Right.
Do you know why it's M and not a quadruple O 35?
I don't.
I don't know either, but the body style of that guitar is a quadruple O.
So is that one.
And this one.
Yep. Why is that a J and not a 4-aught?
Why is this not an M40? Why is this not a quadruple O40? I think it's kind of cool though because they're both kind of in a league of their own with their naming convention.
Yeah.
You got the M and you got 36, you got the J, you got 40. They're out there.
I don't know the specific history on this. I would wager a guess that at some point when this was going into production, to prevent confusion with like a triple O.
Yeah.
Instead of just adding another O, and maybe because from a marketing standpoint it looks better, it's easier to say an M-36 instead of a 4-aught, quad O.
Little quad O, dude.
Quadruple O. That's probably why they went with that naming convention, and I get why they call that the J, because it is this deeper. It's just more to love.
And so the J-40 was an early version of the J-45, I think, is what you had said?
No.
No. There's so many things, like there's J-40 somethings out there, and there's also D-40 somethings out there. And the other day somebody asked me about the D-40, and I wasn't thinking Guild. I'm like, they don't even make that, dude. Martin doesn't even make a D-40. And then somebody said,
like, listen, idiot.
Yeah, come on. All right. We work at a guitar store. You should know this. But yeah, so don't get confused.
That was it Ron Swanson, I know more than you mean.
I know more than you.
That's what happened in that moment.
So do not get it confused with the J-45 because it's not that at all.
Yeah,
it's
that's
the
a different
exact
company.
opposite in terms of the company that makes it. But J-40 and M-36, both quadruple O's. Big difference besides aesthetics.
The depth.
The depth.
This one's a skinny guy. We actually should be swapping guitars because this is the skinny one and that's the one that's more to love. That's what my mom always said.
It balances. It's
I'm
fine.
big boned.
So, yeah, you talked about that being the Nashville secret weapon because you got more body, but it's still like quadruple O depth.
Right. Yeah, it's a more versatile guitar because it will handle all of those things that you want to throw at it. It will do fingerstyle stuff. It has a nice, quick response because of the shallower body, typical, triple O depth. But because of the larger, soundboard, you can really get it going with a pick and strum and, have the volume that you need without having a dreadnought-sized guitar. And so, if you're a musician that's called on to play a lot of different things, you can take one guitar and accomplish a lot of those things.
Yeah. And then over here, you got kind of a more is more type situation. So you got the larger soundboard, but you also got kind of dreadnought depth, deep body, and a little more is more with the aesthetic appointments as well.
True, and there's actually an aspect of that with the tuners that I prefer, if you know what I mean, because I've said that before. I like D28s and HD28s over 35s, personal preference because of the aesthetics, and it's the tuners for me. So kind of a dream guitar for me is this, maybe in a 28 style.
Yeah.
But it is currently kind of a 35-esque, like you said, 4.0.
Yeah.
Spruce, rosewood, bound neck, dot inlay with the big Grovers. And then that takes it up a notch with additional rosewood.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of additional rosewood in that deeper body. And it's got the 40 style appointments.
Yeah. And also, we didn't even mention it, or maybe you did, and I zoned out. 2-piece back, 3-piece back.
Yeah,
That's
traditional
kind of,
3-piece back, again, kind of in line with a 35.
Yeah.
Why did they not just call this the M-35? Because it's one more.
It's one more. It's an extra O, so it's not a triple O, it's a quadruple O, and once you add a 0 to 35, you get 36.
Sure.
I was not good at math. But yeah, this one's got a little more pearl. It's obviously less pearl than a D41.
Just a bit more.
Less pearl than D42, less pearl than a D45. At the entry of the 40 area, that's going to have the least amount of pearl of, 41s, 42s, 45s, but it's still a little bit flashier. Got my favorite headstock inlay there with the CFM block.
Versus the script logo.
Yeah.
And you've got your open back tuners in gold.
Gold.
The other thing, turn it back around, it's got the volute.
You got a volute.
And that's something I feel like kind of gets missed a lot of times. As you go through the standard series, certain, it's crazy because it's like a series within a series, but some of them, like an OM21 does not have a volute, but an OM28 does.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of familiarize yourself with which ones have the point and which ones don't.
Yeah. So I got to play both of these. You will obviously hear a difference because of the body depth. There's just a different tone coming out of these guitars. However, it's worth it to talk a little bit about the strings that Martin puts on these guitars because they're different. And yes, we could have said, all right, let's get the strings off both of these, put the same ones on. But right now, if you're buying a 40, 41, 42, 45, at least most of the ones that we've gotten in recently have had a very specific kind of string that does not sound like those strings.
Let's get into it. Should we get into it now or after?
Let's take a listen. You'll hear the difference, obviously, and then we'll tell you on the other end what we're thinking.
All right, so there you have it. You heard the differences, and a big part of that is because of the difference in the depth of the J or jumbo-sized guitar that I have over here on the J-40 versus the shallower depth of the M. Outside of that, same tone woods are going on, same general body width are going on. There's both, like we said at the outset, 4/0 or 4/0 guitars. But like we hinted at, this has different strings on it. And
From the factory, not stuff that we put on there to experiment. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, yesterday, someone asked, they're playing a different J-40, and asked about the strings. And they are medium gauge strings, but you notice they're very nickel looking, and they're not retros. So I went to Martin's website to confirm what I thought they were, and Martin's website was wrong. So this is what we would call a running change. Martin's website says that this should have probably what that has, which is 13 to 56 phosphor bronze Martin strings on it. Clearly, that's not phosphor bronze. So we'd had a similar situation months back with a D45 that came in with strings that looked like this, which was not the norm for a D45. And at that point, it did say that they were titanium strings, which I thought had kind of gone away. But maybe they're still in production. I don't know. I think these are probably the titanium or the Lux Kovar, or maybe that's the same thing. I don't know, to be honest with you at this point. We know they're not phosphor bronze. They're probably one or the other. They're the Lux Kovar strings, or they're the titanium strings. The person who asked about these really liked them.
Yeah.
So, okay. So all of that being said, that individual really liked these strings. I have typically preferred phosphor bronze, particularly on a rosewood guitar. But it seems to be something that Martin's doing maybe just kind of in production and maybe in an interim period of time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I think the point that this brings up is if you are trying out two different guitars, say you want to compare an M-36 and a J-40 because they're similar body shapes, different body depths, you want to hear the difference, same tone woods, it should be pretty close. Or you want to compare a HD28 to a D45 and see is there really that big of a difference.
Yeah.
You will probably not get a fair comparison when one guitar has these strings and the other has these strings. I think there's something to be said about Martin saying this is how we want to present this guitar, and I think that's cool. However...
Well, and it's a more expensive string.
Yeah.
And so it does kind of make sense if they're saying this is our premier string on our premier line of guitars.
Yeah.
Once you hit that 40 series and up, that they're putting there on there. So I mean, I get where they're coming from if that's what they're doing.
However, Martin makes I think 50,000 different types of strings.
They make
something like that. And there is really a Martin string for any type of style, any type of sound. And so if you are looking at a guitar like this in our store, you love the look, you love the feel, you love the resonance, the vibration that's coming off of it, and you like the tone, but you prefer phosphor bronze 13 through 56 or 80/20 or retros or whatever, we can help because we can change the strings for you and you can try it out.
Yep.
It might take a couple minutes, all right, but we'll do it.
I'm pretty fast. They call me Quick Draw McKee.
Now, I love the retro strings. That is what I often play on my own acoustic. That is not a Martin, and I just like those strings. I've got the Lux on there right now because I'm trying them out. I think they're fine. I like the retros more, but at the end of the day, when I'm out of my, I want to have some kind of warm, thuddy, old school tone, I'm always going back to phosphor bronze lights, and I also feel like that's almost the best kind of common denominator to try out and hear different things on. I know that different tone woods sound better with different strings, but I feel like I get the best idea of what a guitar sounds like most of the time with phosphor bronze strings.
Yeah. Well, they've been the traditional choice for a long, long time. Obviously, retros are called that because if you go back far enough, that's what they were, the preferred string. But so your mileage may vary, and you probably have preferences. So, trying out a guitar, go in knowing, kind of pay attention what's on there, And if you're in a shop like ours, we'll switch them out for you so that you can experience the guitar.
Absolutely. But back to the guitars.
Yes.
Would you take an M36 or a J-40?
I would probably take an M-36. At least that's how I feel right now with my sore shoulder and the depth of this guitar. I moved it this way, honestly, because I was like, oh, this kind of hurts. So, but that's maybe temporary because I had a skiing accident. But I do like some of the appointments on this. I like the abalone rosette, but I do love the shallower depth of that guitar. And I think, at some point, I've long thought, I'll just do maybe some customized M-36.
I think that'd be cool. I also think we did a 12 fret quadruple O that I really loved, and I would love to take that wood pairing and aesthetic and put it on a 14 fret and also do like a deep body 12 fret. I think this is the body shape from Martin that gets the least love, but it's one of the coolest,
Even from Martin, if you think about it, because when they were like, we're going to make a more versatile guitar body, they came out with the GP. Yeah. And it's very similar to a Taylor GA. So I get, you know, with a cutaway, it's a modern shape. But they've had this in their catalog, and it really can do a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And like Chris made that M36 video several years ago now, that has still been the biggest driver for people coming in specifically asking for that guitar, and we have traditionally not had a ton in stock, but both of us love this guitar, and so we're doing a better job about like, this should be standard alongside a 0028 and a HD28, D35, whatever. Like, this should be considered just as,
Classic.
viable of an option and classic. And this guitar,
where I think this
just awesome. Yeah.
If you want, so I talked about how you can do kind of everything on there, and you can do everything on here. But if you lean a little bit more toward the strumming and picking, this will reward that because of that additional depth. This really will replace a Dreadnought.
Yeah.
Bar none. It will do that and have the curvier, somewhat more comfortable shape for some people.
Yeah.
So great guitars.
Both great guitars and both available at alamomusic.com. And we'd like to hear from you which one you like more, or if you have either of these. We know a guy named Mel that waited on his M36 from us for like a year. So thank you for waiting. Luckily, right now, we do have some of both. But if we don't, we can order it for you. We can get it. And you can learn the in-depth specs that we didn't go over, which is not very many, on the website. So there you go.
Comfortable, fast playing necks, great sound, and tons of versatility. So you can buy them online, you can come in, you can give us a call, and we can also chat to see what's going to be the best thing for you. And if you like, comparison videos and witty banter, make sure that you subscribe, you turn on notifications, and like our videos, and comment below which of these you would prefer and which Martin strings you would prefer. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, when you buy the J-40, let us know what you want us to change the strings to, because we got them all.
So getting fired. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.